All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our PreSales Unplugged show, the Leadership Playbook. I'm Arvi Karkamji, founder of Elite Talent, and I work with SaaS companies to really help them build top tier pre-sales and post-sales talent. But today is not about me. Today is about the leaders, the founders that build these companies, as go-to-market team, and the strategies that actually work in today's market, especially in 2026 when things have changed so much. If it's your first time joining us, one quick note before we jump in. These conversations are fully live and intentionally unedited. So what you hear here today is real and exactly how it happened. We stream it live, and you also can catch the replay on our podcast across Apple, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And of course, if you get value from today's conversation, please make sure to follow, subscribe, or leave us a review. I personally read every single one of them. And today I'm super excited. Today is actually a little bit different from what we usually done in the past. I'm joined by Ben. He is the founder of Iris AI. And I'm so excited for this conversation. Thank you so much, Ben, for coming in. Like I said, it's
Sure.
going to be a different topic for us. So I'm honestly ready to start grilling you with questions.
I'm excited to be here and I'm ready for it.
Awesome. Well, the first thing is if you can just give us a little bit background, about yourself, where you started, where you came from, and how did Iris AI even like became a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Ben, based in New York with our company here in our office in Midtown. I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. My first business, I was 14, screen printing T-shirts in my parents' garage for local high school sports teams and clubs and youth groups. And then after college, joined an ed tech company out of DC, where we were focused on taking everything that colleges do over direct mailings and moving them to mobile experiences. So think things like acceptance letters, financial aid award packages, campus tours that are usually on paper maps. We were digitizing and making all of that mobile first. And it was leading that company there where I had my first run-in with RFPs and proposals. As chief operating officer of that company, brought our product to about 1,000 colleges and 100 million students. And along the way did thousands and thousands of proposals and RFPs. And that was really the impetus for starting Iris. Was pre-AI boom, the only way people could solve this challenge of proposal creation was typically just recycling previously used content. But my business was changing all the time. We were constantly shipping new features, coming out with new client stories, updating our marketing materials. And so I wanted a way to be able to contextualize the most up-to-date business information that we had, understand the actual buyer we were responding and working with, and use that to generate a high quality response. And thus, Iris was born, named after my grandma Iris, whose husband, my
I
grandpa
love
Paul,
that.
spent his career responding to RFPs at Lockheed Martin. We were the first AI native platform that was focused on not just saving time for teams, but really increasing the quality of their responses.
I love to hear that. I actually wanted to see if you remember the first time where you kind of had that idea for the business. And I'm always intrigued because like founders, have that idea and it's always so exciting. And then you kind of get like an adrenaline rush. I would assume you did. So I'd love to hear about, your kind of your first moment when you encountered that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was April 8th, 2023. And I was taking a call from my apartment. I just moved to New York and our ed tech company had just gotten acquired. I was working to integrate the two teams and roadmaps and companies together. And someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, Ben, I know you're not really the one who's supposed to be doing this anymore, but you always do it the best. Can you help me complete this RFP?" And at the time, I'd also been tinkering quite a bit with ChatGPT and other LLM technology. And like many people, when they get the ask to do an RFP or proposal, I had this overwhelming sense of dread come over my body of I'm about to have to change my entire day and potentially week schedule to get this done. And because I had been starting to use ChatGPT, it was in that moment on that call where I had this light bulb of idea that there's a now finally the technology available to move the needle on solving this challenge. And so I said yes, did that proposal, quit my job the next day, called up two engineers I'd been working with, and started building Iris.
I love that. Love to hear it. And did you always mean for Iris, obviously AI, to be AI native, or was it something that you were like, I need to figure out a way to automate it and then edit AI afterwards.
Our company's approach to solving this wasn't even possible without AI. It's what I tell people is a Jetsons era solution to a Flintstones era problem. The problem's been around for a while, but the technology to actually solve it is really brand new. There's a lot in the way you store data, the way you contextualize unstructured data, the way that you even write high quality content. All of these components just weren't even feasible even 3 years
Mhm.
ago. It was really just 2.5 years ago that we finally had the building blocks to really move the needle on solving this problem.
Yeah. And just really quick, if you don't mind, for the audience that maybe doesn't fully understand how either RFPs work or how the complex sales cycle works, can you briefly explain, what was the issue with RFPs handling those manually?
Definitely. So 2/3 of all business to business transactions flow through what's called an RFP, or a request for a proposal. So when anyone says, "Hey, I want to buy anything from HR tech, health tech, cybersecurity," they issue a request for a proposal. Sometimes it has thousands of requirements inside of it. Sometimes it's just 100 pages of background of what they're looking for, and you have to create your own proposal. But it's the opportunity for a vendor to speak directly to their buyer, position themselves accordingly, and ultimately try to win the deal. There are 15 industries in the private sector that transact about $10 trillion a year via RFP. And it's actually growing
It's
quite
crazy.
rapidly year over year on the volume of all that. Now, it
Yeah.
takes companies an average of 30 hours across 10 different subject matter experts just to get to first draft. And so the crux of the challenge is, how do you take all of this knowledge that lives in different systems, different file storages, your website, all these different formats, structures, styles, etc., blend all of that together, then actually understand the particular RFP at hand and what that buyer is looking for, and use that to craft a really high quality narrative. And that's what our software is built to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds awesome. When would you say that, or I guess what is fundamentally different based on, you've built companies before to now of building a company that is AI native first compared to, those that either added on later or just at the time haven't yet?
Uh, Absolutely everything. And I would say one word that sums it all up is velocity. Every single function of our business moves at probably 100 to 1,000x the pace of the last company I was at. And the result of that is not just delivering a higher quality solution to the market, but it's changed who we hire, our org structure, job descriptions. And it's not just engineering. Lots of people see the benefits of engineering, features that used to take months now take days, of course, but it's also in the way we use it in marketing and sales and operations. Every facet of our business looks significantly different today than the last companies I built.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing, maybe just a few examples of how obviously the product is AI native, but how have you integrated AI throughout these different departments that maybe one, you've tried things AI related and you're like, oh my gosh, we need to go back to somewhat manually do this because the AI doesn't completely, get it done. And two, what are some things that you were maybe impressed that with AI handling that department or, cross functionally?
Definitely. So AI is really, really good for cross-functional work and cross-functional friction. And if you think about a traditional kind of org structure and management approach, there are a lot of people that I describe as they exist between the gears of different teams. And most of their job is to translate the work that the engineering team does over to the marketing team, or the work the sales team does to the customer success team. And most of that work is reading through those team specific systems, understanding context, and using that to like cross translate information and knowledge. And LLMs, the underlying technology of AI, are remarkably good at understanding that unstructured knowledge. So cross functionally, AI can take a idea a client had on a call, pull that from a transcript, then turn that into all the requirements to build that feature, then write the code to deliver the feature, then test the feature, then write the release notes for that feature, and then create its own demo video of what that feature looks like. And all of those steps happening in a matter of minutes or hours is a major compression in what would otherwise be many cross-functional meetings persisting across sometimes quarters or years.
Yeah.
Some really practical examples are the way we hand off customers from the sales team to the post-sales team, being able to leverage every single call we had with a prospect in the sales cycle and use that to create a hyper-specific implementation plan. The way that we can take release notes from our engineering team and have them recreated into external facing documentation is something that not only would have taken a lot of time beforehand, but probably never would have happened. And that's one thing I always stress when I talk to other companies and other CEOs about how to use AI internally is it's not just about automating the tedious work. Like everyone's first focus
Yeah.
was, what's the work that I hate doing and how can I do less
Yeah.
of it? But the real value is taking the high value work that's not scalable, that you just wouldn't do every time, and allowing AI to take the reins on that. And so there are things that we do now that the level of fidelity in the materials we have for prospects, the level of fidelity we have for materials with our customers, just the quality of everything we do has gotten so much higher because of AI. And then, yeah, there's some tedious work too. Every night I get a briefing from Claude on every meeting I have the next day. And it goes through all the
Right.
attendees, it reads through all of our emails, all of our conversations, and it prepares me for everything I need to do in my next day, which is something that otherwise would have taken me some time and I wouldn't have done as high quality. And some of that block and tackle work is super valuable with AI as well.
Yeah. I love that. You explained that so beautifully. And honestly, I think that there's still like obviously AI is not just brand new like a couple months ago, has been around for a while now. And I think that a lot of leaders have now kind of found a way, okay, this is how we implement it, this is how we start first. But there's still a lot of leaders and founders that one can be confused by the immense amount of information that is out there. There is so much you can literally automate. And you've probably even seen those posts on LinkedIn of like, oh, I just built a whole new go to market strategy with AI. Comment this and let me send it to you. So there's still a lot of noise. Is there anything that you think leaders or founders, still get kind of fundamentally wrong about AI, or if somebody's starting brand new, how to kind of
Yeah,
differentiate the noise from the right thing?
definitely. More than anything, most people need to commit to seeing work all the way through with AI because you see a compounding effect. And what I mean by that is people will go to ChatGPT or they'll go to Claude and they'll say something like, run research on IBM, who I'm meeting with next week. And they'll get
Yeah,
back the set of research and they'll say, this isn't great, or they'll edit it outside of the system and they won't love it. But what makes AI systems really beautiful is the compounding effect of continuing to work with them. So when you get something back on a first prompt, people call like a one shot and a result, and you don't love it, you actually should go back and forth with AI, asking for edits and asking for changes and encouraging it to do until it's exactly how you want it. And then when you get to the end of that, you can say, now learn from all the requests and changes I've asked for and compartmentalize this into a net new prompt or a skill, as Claude calls them, so that next time you can do it the right way from the start. And so many people I see try one thing, don't love the output, and they just think it's all bad. But in reality, the more you work with it, the more the system learns from you. They have incredible memory on cross conversational sort of interactions. When you commit to that, you just see these outsized impacts. The other big thing I talk to most CEOs about is just the cultural change. Many people are rightfully so nervous that if they use
yeah,
AI too much, their boss will think they're lazy. Or if they use AI too much,
yeah,
they'll be working themselves out of a job. But what you see are high agency individual contributors doing the work that used to take multiple teams.
right.
And you want to show that to their boss. In fact, when we interview new candidates, we have them do take home exercises with AI and show us the prompts that they used to get to those outputs because we specifically want to test their AI proficiency and encourage that use. And that cultural change is really really tough. There are many CEOs I talk to where they say the level of pushback they're getting from their team
Yeah,
is a really hard shift to manage. But I sort of say it's on you as a CEO to get the team there, because if you don't get
Yeah.
your team there, your company is going to get left behind.
Yeah, very true. And I'll play devil's advocate here a little bit, and obviously I'd love to go back and forth on it, but I think that maybe the pushback that they're getting from the team is mainly from being scared. I think people are scared, like you said, that if I do too much, I might not be needed anymore. They can automate my entire thing. How do you think on that famous, kind of back and forth between is AI going to take my job or is it not? Where I guess is your thoughts on that?
I'm blindly optimistic that human creativity is going to continue to outpace anything
Yeah.
that a machine can produce. And that doesn't mean it's one or the other. I think this is another thing a lot of people get wrong. They look at an output from AI and they say, I could do this better if I wrote it myself. But almost all of those people could do it even better if they
If
worked
they,
with AI to get
yeah,
it done. And so AI systems are an amalgamation of all of the knowledge that we as humans have written and created as a combined entity and as a civilization. I'm super bullish on the idea that they'll never replace much of the creativity that humans bring to their competency areas. And I encourage everyone to push the limits of what
yeah.
they can do with AI and really feel that power when they have these tools at their fingertips.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd like to add, I think that, will it take some aspects of the job? Maybe there's less people needed for a specific job. However, I do think that the job type is going to evolve and, change. With the introduction of AI, you still need people to run it, to create it, so maybe there's gonna be a shift in terms of the types of jobs that are taken away versus what's added from AI. And I think that people should obviously evolve with that. Like you said, really push your limits to I learned something new, you learn a new skill set. Maybe you went from just making this up, but like an admin assistant to now being a LLM engineer, all those things that are now possible. So I agree. I think there's just
Sure.
going to be an evolution of types of jobs.
Yeah, things are going to shift, and at least in the short and medium term, the sooner you become the internal expert and resource for AI, the better off you are. Um, one misstep I see a lot of companies make is centralize AI competency. And so they take a few people, they call them
Yeah.
the head of AI innovation and the AI czar and whatever it is. And it's really the wrong way to do it, because the whole value of AI is that any individual can build for themselves. And so the right way is for everyone to adopt and use these tools. And in fact, Claude does this better than any of the other systems. When you go to these tools and you say something like, hey, I'm the founder of Elite Talent. How can you help me with my job? It will interview you, go back and forth, and give you ideas on how it can help you
Yeah.
get better at your job in your own way. And so I encourage everyone to think about how it can help them get better in meeting their company's goals. Of course, a lot of that starts at the top of like, do you have clarity in what your company's trying to accomplish, whether it's a revenue goal or a product goal or a customer related goal, so that you can be using these tools to help advance the mission of the organization.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that actually. Very interesting perspective because I was going to ask you next is, should one person in the company handle AI and, try to push it through the company or should it be self-motivated, where every role should figure out their own way of how to be proactive with AI? And obviously I got your answer. So that's a really interesting perspective. I love that.
Yeah, definitely a proponent of everyone being empowered.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's honestly the best way to go. I wanted to shift a little bit to something different that you're obviously doing besides just having an AI native product, and building in the AI world. When we talked previously, you also said that one of your biggest like go-to-market strategies have been through community and community building. I'd love to know just when maybe did you realize, or was it always something that you thought that, we're kind of going in a way of community-led go-to-market, or how did that come about?
Community has been an incredibly powerful driver for us to connect with our customers and our prospects and just folks in the space. One, I think there are some tailwinds in that AI has led to everyone being curious. Everyone wants to talk to peers. They want to hear from other
Yeah.
companies. There's like a massive appetite right now for connectivity. For us, it really started last year when we started getting ingrained in the New York City sales engineering community. There are three folks, Akshat, Owen, and Eric, who started an organization called Sales Engineers of New York, nonprofit, hosts a lot of events, speaking sessions. And we started working with them on sponsoring some meetups, and the crowds were just awesome, like hundreds of people showing up just to talk about this field, hear about how they could make a career pivot, get a job, advance their own profession, whatever it was. And we just found this community was just incredibly exciting for us to sponsor. And I think this year, something like 35 events across 10 different cities, ranging from 10-person dinners to 200-person panels and happy hours and everything in between. And for us, the community aspect is a really great way for us to give back to the people who are working tirelessly in their profession, who often don't get recognized or get fun time off. And it's just a great way for us to give back to the people who are the reason why we're here.
Yeah, I love that. Was there anything that you did, and maybe you already answered it, but that you actually meant to build or go through the community intentionally and be in front of them as a community versus just like I'm in front of an audience?
I think for us, community has been a really good way to, like, one, better understand certainly like product roadmap,
Yeah,
and hear from the community what a product look like. Also just get to show some of our culture as a company. It's really hard when you're a startup
yeah,
to have people get to know you over Zoom calls all day, but community is a really good way to have people just understand like who you are and why you're here. So that's been really valuable for us. Like our whole team comes to most of these community events so that people can meet our engineers, our
excellent.
customer
Yeah,
success managers, our support reps, right? Like everyone involved in making Iris successful.
that's awesome. If I'm a founder right now and I want to get into community-led growth, can you give me 2 to 3 actionable steps on what are the first things I should do or go to?
Yeah. One, find the adjacent companies in your space or you don't compete with, but you could work well with, and just start working with them and find clusters where you have
Mhm.
customers and just start inviting them to lunch, inviting them to coffees, inviting them to dinners, and start more from like a grassroots than anything, seeing where you have these pockets of champions and getting them together, and making sure that like above all else, it's an enriching experience. It's fun, it's enjoyable. People are meeting other like-minded individuals. They're learning something new, and that's for us so far been the recipe for success.
Yeah. So you would say then don't push for like sales when you're there, just fully focus on relationship building.
100%. Nothing matters more than relationships. You can sell later if people remember you, but if the only thing they remember about you is that you tried to sell them,
To sell
they're
them.
never going to want to talk to you again.
Very true. Cool. I would love to shift your focus a little bit onto AI and hiring, with that in mind. I know we touched a little bit on this earlier, but how has AI native company really changed the type of person that you hire right now?
So, from a kind of role and expectation standpoint, everyone we hire has been a high level individual contributor. At my last company, we had a lot of layers of management whose whole job was to make sure people were, on task, understanding their goals, managing cross functional relationships, and all that. But now everyone is just about how ambitious they are at accomplishing their own goals. Not to say everyone's like siloed lone wolf, but like everyone is a really high performing individual contributor. We don't necessarily expect everyone to have used AI in their job before they come to Iris because only
That's
so
cool.
many companies have adopted it in the right way. But we
Yeah.
do expect everyone to have a certain degree of curiosity. I interviewed someone who told me they had never tried AI because they thought it was a fad. Thought that was a pretty silly thing to say in an interview with the CEO of an AI
So,
company and
yeah.
probably someone who's not a good fit. But when we meet people who are like, yeah, I use AI to do all my meal planning. I use AI to, plan out my last vacation. It's a really good sign that there's a really high degree of intellectual curiosity. And then we do take home assignments for most roles, and we specifically require that they use AI to complete the assignments and then show us how they use AI to get that done. So if it's a customer success role, We want them to create a mock onboarding plan for, a random tool that we let them pick. We tell them
Yeah.
to use AI, and then they show us all the prompts they used and all of the AI tooling that they used to actually accomplish that.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I like that. I wanted to ask, I've seen this come up a couple times, and I don't know, obviously, I'd love to know your feedback on it, but I've seen multiple candidates complain in the sense that they've gone to interviews and either hiring managers or recruiters, whoever they're working with, have asked for a summary of their whatever ChatGPT or Claude's like interactions. What do you think about that? I don't know if you guys ever tried it, but I thought, I mean, some candidates were complaining that that's like a privacy, like I don't know, still new to me.
Yeah, I, you know, I think asking someone to summarize all their chat GPT conversations and show it to an interviewer is probably a red flag that the interviewer doesn't fully understand AI and how
And
to use it
AI,
in a
yeah,
competent way.
yeah,
That's super weird, just to be honest. um,
yeah,
there are going to be some really interesting IP conversations on AI because when you work at a company, all the work you do from them is owned by that company. If you're an engineer and you write code, it's owned by the company. But now you have scenarios where people are building agents and prompts and systems and they want to take it to their next job.
mm,
And most employers will frown upon that, and they probably should, because what
yeah,
you're building is something for the rest of the company to own and use, not for you to own and use as an individual.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I'm glad you had the same thought because I honestly
Yeah,
thought
it's
the same.
super
I'm like,
weird.
maybe they just don't understand AI and how it works.
Yeah.
But, that's cool, it's good to know I'm not the only one. What traits do you look for? If somebody's watching this right now and they're like, I'd love to be a part of Iris AI. I see what you guys are building." Maybe they followed you. What traits do you look for people, that thrive in ambiguity and kinda in a way, a blank canvas environment is, entering like a fully AI company?
I would say curiosity and resourcefulness are like the most important right now. You
Yeah,
have to be super curious about everything going on in your particular competency area and what everyone's doing because of the pace of change. And you have to be resourceful. Like things that used to require you talking to a lot of people, getting like you can just figure it out on your own now. And so you have to try to find people. That's why we do some of these take homes that are really, really good at being self-starters and to your point of ambiguity, like operating in the unknown and helping us
yeah,
figure things out. Like we're often hiring people who are building a net new competency inside of Iris, doing things that don't already exist. And so we're looking at them to become the expert and teach us what to do.
yeah, that's cool. And how are you attracting that type of talent right now? Are you guys posting them that they can come out and obviously see it on the website? Are you encouraging them to reach out to you and obviously your leaders? What's how are you attracting that top talent right now?
A little bit of everything. You get a good amount of inbound when you post a job on LinkedIn or on your website. We also do a lot of direct recruiting where we're reaching out to people who are at, they have the background or at a company that we think would be a good fit.
Oh,
We meet a lot of people at events because of the community that we're in. We're constantly meeting people who we think are good fits for our
yeah,
team. And more than anything, we're super candid up front about our expectations. I think a lot of startups sometimes try to take a misstep where they think they need to oversell the candidate on how certain processes work or how well things
yeah,
are figured out, and it never ends up really being a good fit. We're super candid about the stage we're in, the problems we're trying to solve, the challenges ahead, and why we think that they could help us solve those challenges.
yeah.
I there's a founder who I love what he does. He does the anti-sell. So when he's the last stage of an interview, he's like, I don't think you want this. Like, you have
Yeah,
a stable job right now. You're about to be online 7 days a week, 100 hours a week. We have no idea what's going to happen. We have no idea when we're going to run out of money. And he tries really hard to sell people not to take the job as the last step. I
yeah.
haven't gone that far yet, but I have been thinking about that as a really neat way to make sure that people understand what they're signing up for.
Yeah, that's true. I've definitely heard of that before too. Have you I know you said you haven't taken it that far. Have you tried it or, not at all?
Not yet, but I think I'm going to try it in our next round of hiring.
Yeah, that's cool. And I was gonna say another perk of being like a community-led type company is you do get to meet a lot of people. And, when people are genuinely impressed, they obviously having a conversation, it already makes them stand out a little bit more, compared to other people. So, on a hiring perspective, I know that I'm always encouraging candidates, which, the way the market right now, it is a little bit tough for some people to always go to just local networking events or maybe even fly out to one that's like a really big one and really just put yourself out there, talk to people and meet leaders, founders, maybe other potential employees in the company and things like that.
100%.
Yeah. Cool. And then my last question for you, Ben, is if somebody does want to reach out to you, obviously for potential opportunity, could you give us some tips on, without giving away the secret sauce, of like what would make you or what would make them stand out to you?
It's a great question. I'm super responsive on LinkedIn, so definitely LinkedIn over cold email. I always love to hear about what projects people are working on outside of work and in their free time. I think that's always a really good litmus test of how generally worldly and curious people are about what's going on. Almost everyone I know has some sort of outside hobby, side project thing they're vibe coding, doing, etc. And that's often what I love to hear about when I meet people.
Love that. And I'm sorry, I did lie. I have one last question for you. What advice would you give to emerging leaders stepping into the space, whether it's them trying to implement AI or the community-led growth?
When it comes to them trying to implement AI, I say be the person who has gone the furthest at your company and seeing how AI impacts your job. And once you feel that shift, you'll be able to lead by example and driving the cultural change that you need to the rest of the organization.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you, by the way, for coming on, sharing all of this, and just being super
Absolutely.
transparent. There was a lot of good stuff here, obviously, from just building an AI based company and community led growth, which I think is super, super valuable. There's definitely a lot of notes to take from this episode. And for those of you watching live or maybe catching the replay after, feel free to connect with Ben. I'll put his LinkedIn on the show notes as well and on our captions. But I believe, Ben, it's just simple, right? Ben Hills for your LinkedIn. They can look you up and find you.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
awesome. Well, thank you again, Ben. And thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. Great to be here.